All right, let's dive into a financial product you've probably heard about, maybe even been a little confused by. Indexed Universal Life Insurance. Yeah, it's usually just called IUL. Now, it has a reputation for being complicated, and, well, it can be, but the idea behind it is actually pretty straightforward. It tries to mix the safety of life insurance with the growth potential you see in the stock market. So let's pull back the curtain and see how it works. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever wished for one financial tool that could do two jobs at once? Protect your family if something happens to you, but also build value over time? That's really the core problem that IUL was created to solve. And that's our first big idea right there. This concept of one product trying to do two very different things: provide protection and give you a shot at growth. So, what is an IUL really? Well, at its core, it's a type of permanent life insurance. That just means it's designed to be with you for your whole life, not just for a specific term. But here's the key difference: it has two distinct parts. The first part is the death benefit, the money for your loved ones. The second part is a cash value account, and that's the piece that has the potential to grow. When you see it side by side like this, it becomes super clear. On one hand, you have traditional life insurance. Simple, you pay your premiums and your family gets a death benefit. End of story. But with an IUL, you get that same protection plus this extra layer, that cash value component. And that right there is where all the action happens. Okay, so how does this whole thing actually work? When you send in your premium payment, where does the money go? Let's trace its path. It's really a pretty simple three-step journey. First, you pay your premium. Right off the top, a portion of that money goes to cover the policy's expenses, like the actual cost of the life insurance itself. Then, whatever's left over, and this is the important part, gets funneled into your cash value account. That's the engine for potential growth. And that growth is where the indexed part of the name comes from. This is really the secret sauce of an IUL policy. So let's take a closer look at what that means. Now, this is probably the most important thing to get about IULs. Your cash value is not actually invested in the stock market. You don't own any stocks or bonds. Instead, the interest you earn is just linked to the performance of a stock market index, like the popular S&P 500. Here's an analogy. Imagine your boss says you'll get a bonus based on how well the company does. You don't own a piece of the company, but your bonus is tied to its success. It's kind of like that. So here's the trade-off. When you're directly invested, you're on the market roller coaster. You feel all the incredible highs and all the painful lows. With an IUL, since you're only linked to it, the insurance company credits your account with interest based on how that index did. Now, you usually don't get all of the market's gains because of things like caps, but in exchange for giving up some of that upside, you get something pretty powerful on the downside. And that brings us to the payoff for that linked, not invested structure. This is the feature that really gets people's attention: the idea of being protected from a market crash. Let's just imagine a really bad year. The stock market, the S&P 500 that your policy is tracking, just plummets. It's down 20%. Ouch. If your money was actually in the market, your account balance would have just taken a 20% hit. But with an IUL, you get this: a big, beautiful zero. And in a down market, believe me, zero is your hero. Most IULs have what's called a floor, and it's often set at 0%. That means even if the market drops 10, 20, or even 40%, the interest credited to your cash value won't go below zero because of market performance. It's like a built-in safety net. Of course, the policy's normal fees and charges still come out, but you're shielded from that direct market loss. Okay, we've covered growth and we've covered protection. But there's another really important piece of this puzzle, and that has to do with how these policies are treated under U.S. tax law. So when an IUL policy is set up and managed correctly, it can come with some powerful potential tax perks. First, the cash value can grow tax deferred, meaning you don't pay taxes on the gains year after year. Second, you can typically access that money, often through policy loans, without triggering an immediate tax bill. And finally, just like with most life insurance, the death benefit that goes to your beneficiaries is generally paid out income tax-free. That's a huge deal for a lot of families. So let's put it all together. You've got life insurance protection, growth potential linked to an index, a safety net against market losses, and potential tax benefits. With all of that on the table, the big question is, who is this actually for? And the honest truth is, it's absolutely not for everyone. An IUL is a complex, long-term product. It has costs, it has rules, and it has a lot of moving parts.
It's probably best to think of it not as a replacement for things like your 401k, but as a potential complement, one more specialized tool in your financial toolbox.
And that really brings us to our main takeaway today. Because of all this complexity, this is not a do-it-yourself project. The key is to really understand its unique design, both the potential upsides and the limitations and costs. Ultimately, the real question is, does this specific blend of protection and index growth actually help you build the financial future you're aiming for? And frankly, that is a question that's best answered with some professional guidance.